Thank y'all for being here. What an incredible step that y'all have taken to just be here. My name's Jeremy. I'm the executive director of Vigilant Hope. I get the honor to be a part of this incredible movement here in Wilmington. And I just want to be the first to welcome you here. I want to recognize a few different people. I want to thank A Bike for Every Child for getting us this space. Aren't they awesome? Yes. We definitely want to thank our panelists, who Laura will kind of introduce here in a little bit, right, Laura? You'll introduce them. Thank you, Dave. We want to thank Good Shepherd for the amazing content we're going to hear here soon. And I just want to take a moment just to specifically recognize every image bearer here tonight. I think it's important that we're here, that we're together, we're willing to listen. We're able to recognize each and every single person that's in this room tonight as image bearers of Christ, right? We might come from different walks of life, but we're all made in the image of Christ. And man, what a humble thing to think about. So let me open up in prayer, and then I'm going to hand this over to Laura. God, thank you for this opportunity that we get to come together and just be together. And I pray that you would open our ears to listen, God, our eyes to see. And I just pray that we would just be in the midst of all that you're doing in this moment, God. And we love you, we worship you, we pray. Amen. Amen. Lord be.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening, Laura.
Nice to see you guys. My name is Laura, and just a few weeks ago, we were with some of our friends and some of our friends that live on the streets, some friends that live in the shelters, some friends that are struggling with housing, and we were just kind of grieving and lamenting because there's just a lot going on right now. There's a lot. We're in a hard season coming off of a pandemic that caused a lot of people to lose housing, coming off of a time when our neighbors, the Salvation Army, are getting ready to transition to a new space. But there's going to be a gap between what they're able to offer right now, and we're going to have a couple years where we don't have access to that shelter. Right? We're in a season where housing is expensive. Anybody paying too much for housing in the room? Yes, hello somebody. It's expensive in this town. And so we've been struggling, right? And we were just grieving, and we were like, we got to talk. Like, I don't think the world knows. We're coming off of an ordinance that has really changed the safety of our neighbors on the streets. And so we were grieving, and we just really felt like maybe our community didn't really know that all these things were happening. So we were like, let's just have a forum and tell everybody. And I was like, maybe a couple people will come. So we're like, oh, let's set out more chairs. So we're so glad you guys are here tonight. Our goal really is to just paint a big picture of what things are look like. Here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to walk out as an expert on housing. You're not going to walk out as an expert on homelessness because we can't get into all the details of all the things in one night, but we're going to paint a big picture so that maybe you come away with a little bit of a better understanding of what, number one, our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness are facing and feeling. We're going to center that all night long. And you're hopefully going to come away with a couple of practical steps that you can take. Our prayer has been that you will be overwhelmed to the point of action, not overwhelmed to the point of paralysis. So that's the goal, right? So take a deep breath because we're about to go on a ride, okay? All right, so our goal tonight will be, you will see around the room, we literally put big pieces of paper on the walls at Vigilant Hope at our gatherings and said, for those of you who are living outside, or for those of you who are bouncing from couch to couch, if you'll just, what do you want the world to know? What do you want your community to know or to understand? So you can read people's quotes all over the walls tonight. We want to honor their words. We want to hear what people have to say. So we're going to actually kind of ground ourselves tonight. We're going to start by, I'm going to read a couple of quotes from some of our friends who are currently affected by all the things we're going to talk about tonight, because these are real human beings, y'all. All right, so take a deep breath. So this morning, some people wanted people to know, knowing that tomorrow might be worse. There's no future to look forward to. It feels like everyone else has someone to fall back on when things get bad. Somebody else said, they wanted us to know, I've been homeless since 1998 from fleeing domestic violence and now have PTSD. Somebody wanted us to know, I have a record, so I can't get into shelter and I'm trying to stay clean, but there are needles in our camps. Somebody said, try to be happy for every single thing that you get. There's a lot of wisdom on the streets. And finally, somebody said, we were interviewing people, and my colleague Christina said, I want to honor your dignity in whatever this conversation looks like. And the person said, I ain't had no dignity for the last 10 years. So let us open our ears and our minds. And I'm going to invite Liz Carbone, our good neighbor over at Good Shepherd Center. She is going to share with us a little bit of data to give us just a little context of what homelessness looks like in our city right now. And then we'll get into our panel discussion. So welcome.
Is that better? Okay. Okay, so as a start, how many people in the room are familiar with Good Shepherd Center? Oh, what a great response. Okay, so for the few of you who might not know, Good Shepherd Center has been in this community for 40 years this year. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary, and we are kind of a full-service homeless services provider, if you will. Our mission is to feed the hungry, to shelter the homeless, and foster transition to housing. So we're doing everything from those initial relationship building efforts. We're offering just the basic emergency needs, a hot meal, a place to stay for the night, clothing, a restroom, but then we're also doing that harder and longer term work, helping people in their path back to housing. We serve men, women, families with children, seniors, veterans, etc. So how many of you are familiar with the continuum of care? A few less hands, that's okay. And Meg here is going to be the real expert on the continuum of care, so I'll hope to not do you a disservice in my attempt to explain it. So basically our continuum of care is a national model that we implement here in Wilmington that brings in providers, not just from our county actually, but from the Tri-County area to come together, whether you are a street outreach team, whether you're just providing meals from your church or your ministry, or if you are kind of a full service mental health provider. So regardless of how you're touching people through services that are for folks experiencing homelessness, you're kind of coming to the table so we can all work collaboratively. So this is some important foundational information for our conversation today. The continuum of care is also where a lot of this data that we're going to see today lives and who's responsible for gathering it. We also have some data that's being presented from the Bowen Report. This was a professionally commissioned study, and it was commissioned by our joint City of Wilmington and Hanover County Workforce Housing Advisory Committee in 2020, and it was an effort for the first time for the first time to really have a comprehensive understanding of what our housing crisis looks like, specifically for our county. Not collected by the U.S. Census, not collected by some academy out of California. We wanted data specifically to our community and to the subset populations that we're all serving. So that's where the data from this presentation comes from. So getting started, the COC, as I said, as I've referred to it throughout this presentation, is our continuum of care. It's a model that was designed by HUD for communities to do a better job of helping people from falling through the gaps of a services suite, so to speak, in a county, in a city, or in a region. The Homeless Management Information System, or as we call it, HMIS, is basically a database that we can use to share information between providers and then also internally in every individual organization. So as staff turnover happens or as someone leaves us for a period of time, we don't have to start over from scratch with our relationship that we built with that person. It's also a really great way for us to assist someone in keeping track of things like their birth certificate, their social security number. If you, like myself, forget your social security number every year, when you need to file your taxes, there's a database right there for you that has that. It helps you do things like access your benefits or apply for a bank account a lot easier. And then we have what's called coordinated entry, and this is the effort, again, implemented nationally and right here in our community, where folks can reach out when they are in housing crisis. So it's not just for folks that are actively experiencing homelessness. It might be for someone who's facing an eviction, who's just worried about their day-to-day housing costs and feels that that might be a threat for them on the horizon. It's a place for someone to go to get kind of a baseline of information about what's available to them. And again, that lives within our COC. So who are we talking about when we talk about our neighbors? I always like to say that there's as many reasons a person experiences homelessness as people experiencing homelessness, right? So there's no one cause, there's no one root issue. We see a lot of the same themes in our community, particularly cost of living increases, people being priced out of their homes, but every person's story is really different and individual to themselves. So we kind of break it down into these 4 categories in our community. Sheltered is exactly what it sounds like, a person that is currently actively staying in an overnight shelter, like Good Shepherd. Then we have our unsheltered community, so folks that might not be staying every night in a shelter or in a transitional housing program, but they might still be accessing services or working with a street outreach ministry, but those folks might be staying in a car, they might be staying in a building that's not necessarily meant for residential habitation, they might be at a friend's one night and then in a motel the next night, so someone who doesn't have a consistent place to stay every night of the week. And then we have our chronically homeless folks, which, there is a lot of overlap between our unsheltered community and folks that are chronically homeless, but it's not a perfect fit. So there's lots of overlap, but those terms are not necessarily synonymous. And chronically homeless individuals, they have a literal definition that we get from the federal government, basically about the length of time a person has experienced homelessness. This is not a person who has experienced one economic misfortune in their life. They've fallen on one hard time and they figured it out either through services or their own hard work or a friend's support, and they've lifted themselves out of it. This is a person that is perpetually experiencing homelessness, typically for a period longer than 6 months, and typically at least 3 or more times. And those are the numbers that we really try to capture through the point-in-time count, which I'll talk about in just a moment. That's not a perfect process either, but it's a little bit easier for us to wrap our head around those numbers than it is for who we refer to as the hidden homeless. And if there's one thing that I hope you can take away from this presentation tonight is that it's very difficult for us to quantify the hundreds, if not thousands, of people in our community, in this county, who we don't see at Good Shepherd, we don't see downtown at the library, but are very much struggling and in housing crisis. Those might be 3 single moms sharing one apartment. You're doubled or tripled up because you can't afford to live here. A college student who's living in their car, who's just making it work, and doesn't even know what services are available to them. A person that's staying with their mom, who maybe is in public housing. She's not supposed to be on the lease, but where else am I going to go, right? So there are folks that are in active housing crisis. They're living among us every day, and we don't necessarily get to meet them through services. It's always important to keep that in the back of our mind, that we're always dealing with folks that are currently experiencing homelessness. We're also always worried about those folks that are just right there on the cliff. So through our point-in-time count data, which going back 12 years in this chart, the point-in-time count is an effort that's led by our COC to go out on a specific night of the year, typically in January, and to meet as many people as possible in shelters, in transitional housing communities, and living on the street or in some unsheltered space to capture information about them. It helps us inform our work. It helps us understand and decide what types of resources need to be dedicated where. And it gets reported to the federal government and to the state so they can determine how much money gets put into our community to meet the needs of those folks. It's never enough money. But, so it's again broken up into folks that are in emergency shelter, in a transitional housing community, or who are literally unsheltered. And I think, as much as we all in this room feel and know that the situation in our community is certainly getting worse, I do think that it's worth pointing out that if you look at where we were in 2010 from where we are in 2022, I think most people in this room would think the chart is always like this, right? Is that the right way if you're looking at me? Yeah. It's always up, right? It's a steady trend. And that's actually not the case. Comparatively to where we were in 2010, we had over 700 individual people in our community that were falling into these categories. And I think this is encouraging because it shows us that the efforts that we're working on every day at Good Shepherd, as the other wonderful agencies that are here in this room, that they are working. We just need more resources, more funding, and more community support behind those programs and services. So the numbers are trending down, and we'll talk a little bit about each group individually in just a moment. But you can see some really important spikes in our community, right? What happened in 2018? Anyone? COVID. Hurricane Florence, right? And then what happened in 2020? You can see another spike moving into 2021 for our overall data when the COVID pandemic hit our community and our country. So we always think it's helpful, again, just for a framework of where we're working with or where we're starting the conversation about who we need to serve and who we are serving. So the unsheltered population, again, is not necessarily an upward trend. So we have kind of peaks and valleys in our data. You can also note some specific instances like the foundation of Good Shepherd's project, which is called Lakeside Reserve, that was specifically targeted to folks that were unsheltered, to the chronically homeless. When that community was completed, in 2018 and 2017, you can see a precipitous drop because a lot of folks were moved into housing. And then again, in 2018, you can see a really steady increase after Hurricane Florence and again the pandemic. So right now, on any given night, we feel that we're averaging around 150 or so unsheltered individuals in our community. And the chronically homeless population, again, not necessarily synonymous with our unsheltered folks. Peaks and valleys, right? It's not necessarily an upward trend all the time. So when initiatives have moved into our community, like the introduction of a significant number of housing choice vouchers in 2012, you saw a precipitous drop in the number of chronically homeless folks in our community. In 2016 and 2017, the first phase of Lakeside Reserve opening. And then 2021 into 2022, a really precipitous hike. So that's where probably part of the reason that we're all here is because we've seen this increase, and as a community, we're moved to do something about it. And there's a lot of factors. Again, Hurricane Florence, we lost not only a really significant portion of just affordable market rate housing. It's not necessarily government housing or nonprofit managed housing, but just housing that was simply cheaper, more affordable for working folks. We lost a lot of those units and they never came back online. Landlord acceptance of housing choice vouchers. This has been kind of a newer problem in our community. 10 years ago, you could really take that thing like a golden ticket, and you could go anywhere into our community and use that housing choice voucher. Some of you may be more familiar with that, called Section 8. And you could trade it with a landlord for a rental subsidy, kind of anywhere you wanted in the community. And recently, because we have such a crowded rental market and our occupancy rates are so high, a lot of landlords are choosing not to accept those vouchers in their either kind of mom and pop landlord opportunities or in the larger residential communities. And that's a real challenge, and that's one of our biggest and best tools to move people from shelter, from their housing crisis, back into independent housing. And our housing market in general is crazy. I know Laura said it, but one more time, how many people are paying too much for their rent in this room or your housing costs? I know I am. I'm not ashamed to raise my hand. We have a really challenging housing market here, and I know that there's not time to get into the needs, policies, and funding opportunities around our affordable housing challenges. We do have a breakfast coming up on Thursday that Laura will talk about that will address that a little more in depth, and we also have our Cape Fear Housing Coalition here in Wilmington that talks about those issues all the time. So I really highly encourage you to look into that group if you're interested in affordable housing policies. Again, the COVID-19 pandemic, we are just seeing over and over and over again that mismatch for folks between what they're earning when they're working $7 or $8 or $9 an hour jobs. They just can't make it that math pencil for themselves or for their families when an apartment costs $1,800 or $1,900 a month. And then we also have the lack of comprehensive wraparound services. So places like the Healing Place are a huge step in the right direction for our community. We've typically really struggled with those addiction services for folks that are, experiencing severe and persistent mental health crises. Shelter and housing programs can only do so much without that wraparound support. But the good news is, and I try to end on good news, is there are solutions that really are working in our community that we should all be excited about. And so there's a couple of ways that we're seeing every day the way that folks move out of their housing crisis, out of their homelessness, back into independent housing. And for some folks, they do self-resolve their crisis. They rely on a family member, on a friend, on their own ingenuity to work through their crisis. Maybe they just need a soft place to land, a few nights at a shelter and a transitional housing program. And they're going to work out whatever their crisis is on their own. We feel that about 40% of the people in our community kind of self-resolve their issues. But for most folks, especially because of the challenges of our housing market and their personal challenges, they need a heavier touch or a bigger investment in them to get back on their feet, be stable, and enjoy that same quality of life that we want for everyone in our community. So Good Shepherd really tries to focus on what we call housing-focused case management. That's something that helps people connect to resources of all kinds, right? Whether that's mental health support, whether that's going through an addiction program, whether that's helping them with transportation or with applying for benefits, but all with the intention of getting that person back to housing. We see that as the number one best way to improve that person's quality of life, and then to continue to provide them the supportive services that they need to stay housed for the long term. So we believe in housing first, and that's kind of our approach, helping people move back into housing and then hang on to it for good. Rapid rehousing is for folks that need one step above that. So some folks just need that case management, support with that affordable housing search, maybe a co-signer on a lease, for example, if you have poor credit or a criminal background. Some folks need, again, just a little more support than that. So we employ what's called rapid rehousing funding, and that is basically an investment in that person to keep them from having to experience homelessness for months and months and months, if not years, saving up for that initial upfront investment of getting back into an apartment, right? Because many people can afford the rent, even if it's costly, but that first month, last month, security deposit, utility deposit, application fee, management fee, trash fee, all of those things can add up to thousands and thousands of dollars that keep people homeless unnecessarily, sometimes, again, for months, if not years. So we deploy those funds to help get people back into housing and restabilize just as quickly as we can. So literally exactly what it sounds like, rapid rehousing. And then for folks that are probably the most visible in our community, if not the largest percentage of this overall population that we're talking about, are unsheltered folks or chronically homeless folks. Lots of really great ministries and organizations in our community are doing street outreach. So going out, visiting with people, getting to know their stories, building trust, helping them understand what's available to them, and then hopefully connecting them to other supportive and housing-focused services. Day shelter plays a really important part in that too. So day shelter is a place where folks can go to receive services, even if they choose not to stay overnight. For a lot of people, that's just not the solution that makes sense to them, right? People should have the choice of where they'd like to stay and where they'd like to be at night, to choose to build a relationship with someone before you come inside. I always tell people that, if my shelter was empty and every person in this room experienced homelessness tonight, not all of y'all would choose Good Shepherd. You might say, I'm going to make a go of it in my car. I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to just cash out my savings account and try a motel for a while. So day shelter helps us engage with people, build relationships with them, and then help to serve them, again, on their path back to housing as we build that relationship and trust. And then lastly, permanent supportive housing. So I know we've been talking a lot about in our community recently. And this is that really special housing intervention for folks that are chronically homeless and who have a disability. So people who just cannot participate in our housing market without support, people who can't participate in our jobs market without support. If you have a disability, if you're in a wheelchair, if you're 80 years old, you can't go and work a 40-hour week. And even if you are working a 40-hour week in Wilmington, sometimes you still can't afford to live here. So supportive housing does two things. It provides someone with an affordable unit that costs 30% of whatever their income is. Even if their income is zero, that means you're being charged $0. So if you're doing it right, it'll cost you $0 for someone who's not earning income. The majority of the folks that we're working with that are in supportive housing are paying around $200 or so for their housing. And if you can find an apartment in Wilmington that costs $200, I'll take you out to dinner. So, but it's not just about the affordability, right? Because if you have disabilities, if you have just been living with the PTSD and trauma of your chronic homelessness, if you need support with your doctor's appointments, if you need help remembering to pay your rent, for a million good reasons, a lot of folks need those ongoing supportive services to stay housed for the long term and to work on their mental and physical health, to reconnect with the community. So the supportive piece is just as important as the affordable piece. So we, for example, employ a full-time case manager who works with folks as much as or as little as they need to be safely housed, to be a successful and good neighbor, and to stay housed for the long term. And lastly, what can you do to get involved? I think everybody here is probably excited about doing something, right? Show of hands. Who wants to do something in this room? Right. Anybody who doesn't have your hands up, I can see you. Just kidding. But everybody here wants to do something. And I think just being here is really something. So just wanting to learn, wanting to educate yourself is so incredible. And I really just appreciate your time to speak so much. But you can keep learning. You can reach out to these wonderful folks on the panel, to the folks at Vigilant Hope, to us at Good Shepherd. We'd love to talk to you more, share with you what we're doing. Of course, you can volunteer at our organization or any other of these great organizations here. Share your time, share your compassion. Our neighbors in crisis. You can donate, of course, because who doesn't need a little money to help people? And also you can be a good advocate in whatever way feels good to you. That doesn't always mean what you think it is. It's not always calling and fussing out your elected officials here, Sometimes it's just speaking up when your neighbor says something that doesn't sit well in your heart with you. Sometimes it is writing that email or that letter to your local elected officials and saying, you know what, I do support that housing community being next to my neighborhood. So being an advocate a lot of times just means showing up and not being afraid to speak up for your neighbors in crisis. So again, thank you so much for your time. Our contact information's on the screen here, and we'd be happy to talk with you after. But again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that, Liz.
I am a hopeless advocate because my daughter drinks alcohol, and I love her with all my heart, even though she drinks. I have tried through religious efforts because I am a Christian. I was saved at the end of Carolina Beach in the ocean, and I love the Lord Jesus Christ, God. He is the Savior of this world.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, friends, it's time to get to our panel. So, good evening, panel. We want to thank you guys. You know, we selected this panel because they all come from really unique perspectives. They have multiple different angles for each person. And so I want to just begin by welcoming you and thank you for taking time. Thank you for what you do and the ways that you serve our community, but thank you for taking time to speak tonight. So I would love for you to start by just tell us who you are and tell us why on earth you said yes when Vigilant Hope called and said, will you please be on this panel? You can start, Lawrence.
All right, I guess my name is, does not sound like it. Hello, check.
Still next.
Try it again. All right, there we go. All right, well, my name is Lawrence. I work for Vigilant Hope. I'm the shower trailer and facility maintenance manager. I was homeless for, man, God knows how many years before I ran into homeless, Vigilant Hope actually, and they helped me get off the streets. And I got clean from drugs. 5 years clean now, so. The reason I said yes to this is because there's a lot of people that need to be somebody to speak for them out there on the streets that are either you don't see them. There's like I'd say maybe 40% of the homeless population do you actually see out on the streets and out walking around. A lot of them they don't want to be seen. They want to hide because they don't want to feel discriminated against the city and other people that think they're better than them because they drive a flashy car or have a great job. We're all human. We're all God's people. We should all love each other the same.
All right, I have too many mics. If you're a praying person, you got to pray over the system, okay? Go ahead.
So I'm going to pass it on to Meg now and let her tell her side.
Hi, good evening. I'm Meg McBride. I'm the pastor of Hope Recovery United Methodist Church. I, too, am a person in recovery, Lawrence, so very cool. I started my career working in homelessness as a disability advocate for hospital patients experiencing homelessness. My job was to help people get on Social Security, disability, and Medicaid. And then I became the director of Hope Recuperative Care, which was a hospitality house for folks that had been hospitalized, who were unsheltered. They would come and stay with us for a time of respite and recuperation. And in my 18 months there, we had 72 people come and stay with us during that time. Became a pastor, and 2 years ago, my supervisor said, hey, we need your help with this thing called the warming shelter. I thought that maybe I was done with homelessness, but no. So now I'm one of the co-organizers of the warming shelter. It's an emergency overnight pop-up shelter that opens on any 2 consecutive nights. The temperature falls below 30 degrees. We welcome anyone into a Methodist church downtown, no questions asked, for warmth, comfort, and safety. I also sit here as the vice chair of the Cape Fear Homeless Continuum of Care.
Good evening. My name is Christine Perez. I am the director of Living Hope. I started this ministry 3 years ago when COVID hit. A lot of the shelters and places that were feeding the homeless were shutting down. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my husband and said, we can't just sit here. We have to do something. Our friends still need food. They still need hugs. They still need love. They still need prayers. And so against a lot of people's opinions. We went out on the streets. We loaded our 5 kids up in our car, and we made 10 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and just started serving on the streets. So no gloves, no masks. We just wanted them to see our smiles and to love them. And so we've been doing this for 3 years. And we currently are at Red Cross Street, and we serve about 60 plus people every single Wednesday, and been doing this for about 3 years. And we are in the midst of partnering with Meg and 2 other partners to open up a day shelter.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Barfield, Jr. I serve as one of your 5 county commissioners here. Wilmington is my home. This is where I grew up. The reason I said yes, Pastor Mike Ashcraft asked me.
Thanks, Mike.
The reason I said yes is because I have a passion for making sure that everyone in our community has a voice. The reason I said yes is because there before the grace of God, there go I. The reason I said yes is I said in one of our county commissioner meetings, this book I read says that what you've done to the least of these, you've also done unto me. And I want to be held at judgment day and didn't answer the right question at the right time. The reason I say yes because everyone deserves quality, decent shelter. I've been an advocate for the homeless population here for quite a while. My father, who also served as the county commissioner here, owned rooming houses for quite a long time. He sold the last 4 he had about 3.5 years ago, and to me, he was getting a little too old to handle those properties. But he housed individuals that couldn't have continuous homes without someone with compassion for them. Back then, you could rent a room for about $60 a week. I think now they're around $175 to $200 a week, which is a whole lot more than what he was charging way back in the day. But he had consistent folks living in his rooms because they needed some place to stay. I'm really encouraged tonight to see the faces in this room, to see the friends in this room. And I heard the pastor who prayed. He made one statement that I can resonate with, and it's called a movement. God bless you.
That's good. Thank you all. And thanks again for being here tonight. So we did collect questions in advance. I feel like if we just let you all ask questions, it would be a madhouse right now. So we collected and kind of curated from that. Lawrence, I would love, you and I mean, we go way back, right? But in chatting, as we were kind of just talking about what to share tonight, we talked a little bit about your experience with homelessness. And you started kind of listing different places, different seasons of homelessness, different places that you slept. Can you just tell me a couple of different places that you lived over the years?
Well, there's been. Don't get to that back.
Okay.
All right, so when I first came to Wilmington back in, I'd say, 2008, I slept, the very first night I came to Wilmington, I slept behind a shed at a church on Market Street. And I've pretty much been, on the streets and homeless the whole time I've been here. I've gone to several agencies over the years to try and get, supplemental help through DSS or other organizations, and they always told me that I did not qualify. And I was, I'm homeless, I need help, how can I not qualify? You just got to qualify for everything these days. And to me, it don't really make no sense, but it is how they run it. Hopefully we can, have a little bit of leniency change on it after this, but if not, then we'll keep fighting to get it done.
Can you tell me over like in our conversations, how'd you spend your day? Like when you were living outside, like I know how you spend your days now. Maybe you should tell me that first. Tell me what do you do now? What's your days like? Working at Vigilante.
But now I'm pretty relaxed now, working here, I get to love on people every day, and I get to show my face, and when somebody asks for a tent, I have the ability to provide them with that resource, and it makes me happy to be able to help somebody that's in a position that I was once in, and work for the same people that helped me when I was in that same position, and just be able to just love on people. That's all I've ever wanted to do, is show love to everybody. And if I don't get it in return, oh well. There's somebody's going to give it to me, but I don't expect it in return. I really don't.
Well, we love it.
People tell me, hey, great job. And be like, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to love on people. I don't consider it a job. I consider it doing what God told me to do.
That's good.
And that's love on people.
Y'all can clap, it's all right. We can be an interactive group. So I love that we get to do that together every day. I love getting a service side. And I also love that when I remember about you, when you were living on the streets, you were already like volunteering. Like you were like, what can I do to help? How can I serve? Like you had that didn't come when you were housed. That was who you were. But tell me, when you were living outside, like, how'd you get ready in the morning? Where do you brush your teeth when you live in the woods, Lawrence? Let's get real basic here, if you don't
Well,
mind.
you basically got a 5-gallon jug of water, and if you don't have that, there was many mornings I went down to the creek or down to the lake and brushed and washed my teeth and cleaned myself up real good so that I could smell better and be blend in with society and not go out looking all trashy and dirty and muddy. If it was I wouldn't care if it was a puddle of water. If I was able to wash up and clean up and make myself feel more human, that's what I did.
Thanks. Christine, let's go to you. So you get to be out on the streets a lot and with people. And recently, in just the last few months, we did have a new ordinance, a new county ordinance passed that prohibited folks from sleeping on county property from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I think the central focus was very much the library area, downtown area, but it is all county property, so parks and community spaces. There is now like a risk of being ticketed or even arrested if I didn't remember to bring the written stuff. Sorry, guys. Can you just tell me how has that affected what you do on the streets? How has that affected your friends, the people that you kind of do life with out in the community? Tell us what you're seeing.
So currently, we serve about 60 people every single Wednesday. But with the ordinance happening, they're scattered. So I have seen a fluctuation and a change for sure. But the biggest issue for us is, and of course we don't have any concrete answers on this, but the location that we're currently serving at, which is 411 Red Cross Street, we were just given notice just a couple of weeks ago that we are no longer able to serve on that spot. We've been there for 2 years. And so that is really concerning. And one of the things is we're finding out from the neighbors is that because the ordinance passed, they're being pushed to go and hang out in the parking lot that I serve at, even on the days that I'm not there, which of course is causing neighbors to get angry and upset. Obviously, I can't do anything about it because we're not there. We're only there on Wednesdays. And so now, if I don't have a spot to replace, I don't know where to tell my friends to find us. And that's a huge issue because we do have people that will disappear for 2 months or 3 months. They'll go live with their sister and come back because it didn't work, and they always come back to the parking lot. So having the ordinance change that, and they can't hang out at the library, really changes the fact that there's not like a single area where they can congregate. They're all over, they're spread everywhere.
Meg, could you also, just from your perspective, your experience and also your unique kind of, all the hats you wear?
All my hats. The library was not ideal in any way, and that's not something to be disagreed about. But what the public library has always done, historically, is been a welcoming space for any person to go. And so what it created there was a sense of normalcy in a very abnormal world, where people could be found by mental health providers. So my friend Wendy is a peer support specialist for a local mental health provider, and she basically spends her days out on the street medicating people every single day. This helps them stay out of jail, stay out of the behavioral health hospital, and since the ordinance has been passed, she has been unable to locate a good deal of those clients on a regular basis. Just saw her yesterday, and her favorite client, was in behavioral health hospital. And he's already been through the jail system as well. And so going to the hospital or going into jail is just creating more trauma for people. And so that's upsetting. The other problem, I think, is that there was no alternative solution. So if you can't be here, then where? Then where? Go somewhere, anywhere. And I would have loved to have seen a where first before there was a no. And so, and then you have those of us in the community that are trying to respond to that as best we can. People that feel called to this work, like because our faith calls us to be in this work, not because we're making bonus pay or, we're not motivated like that. We're called to feed the hungry and heal the sick and be with sinners because we're sinners as well. And so I would love to see there be an offer of resources and reach that could really bring us to the fruition of something that was solid instead of something that's just, it's a moving target. So homelessness has not gone away just because it's not where it was before. It is still there.
I kind of want to, I appreciate that. So this is new for Vigilant Hope. Like we normally don't have much to say about anything political ever, just to be honest. But what has happened with this ordinance is it kind of was this shine a light on a lot of something that was really hurting people that were important to us. And so I was like, oh, do we have to talk about this? But we have to talk about this because this is something that's happening in our community. So we also, I was sitting in a room full of, we invited, so there are 2 great street outreach programs specific to downtown. We invited them, we partner with them, we collaborate with them every day. They're not really allowed to be present in this space or to speak on this right now because they're in a unique position because they're funded by a city and county. And so they walk a fine line, but they're doing incredible work and we want to make sure to point to that tonight. But I feel like, their legs were cut out from under them because what has happened is all of our community has been sort of pushed out of this area and it's their service area. And so now all the rapport and trust that was being built by that great team is a struggle. And so an encouragement is, one of the reasons we're saying, hey, let's have a conversation with our leaders. Our elected leaders is because there's some good stuff that's happening that was chosen by them. And then there's also some stuff that's kind of canceling out all the good work. And so we want to really encourage the good things to continue, but let it be cohesive. Please, yeah.
I just want to say one more thing about, the Getting Home program uses a community policing effort where police officers are paired up with social workers. And when we had the last warming shelter, it was awesome. We had the Getting Home team in there with the police officers, and it was fun, actually. I could see the rapport that was built between officers and individuals. And after the ordinance was passed, there was heavy policing at the library. And I have a hard time understanding how you're going to invest money in a community policing model, which is asking people to trust law enforcement, which is really hard if you've been arrested or spent time in jail, and then to go and undo that with heavy law enforcement and policing for several weeks after the ordinance was passed, and that makes no sense to me at all. And so I think that just needs to be named.
Thank you. Commissioner Barfield, welcome. We want to honor your no. We want to honor your no. Commissioner Barfield is the only person who voted no on the ordinance. Yeah. Because we really love the people. We really love the people that are hurting, and it sounds like you do too. So, but I want to know, why did you vote no, and what do you wish that collaborative had done differently?
I didn't want to criminalize being homeless. This ordinance came before our board early last year, and with it was covered with, if you were caught on county property sleeping, you would have a $50 fine. And my comment then was, if I had $50, I would be homeless. And so it didn't make sense that you would find someone, have someone that would now have something that would be an impediment to getting rental housing because they had a fine on their record. It just did not make good common sense. And my comment was, Until you solve the root of the problem will always persist. And the root is chronic homelessness. And just because you move people from one block to another doesn't solve the problem. You just move it further and further up. Now, I've met with our folks that are with our Getting Home program, and they have the same challenges. They were building trust, building rapport, building community with individuals, and now they can't find them. They were helping people, but now they can't find them. And for me, the move was all about downtown. It was all about money, in my opinion. It was all about the downtown businesses trying to protect resources there, as opposed to looking out for people. And everyone here is a citizen of the county. We just had a State of the County address recently by our chair, and he said the State of the County is great. But it's not great when you look around your community and see folks that are experiencing chronic homelessness. When it came before our board early last year, I didn't realize that it had to have a majority to pass. If not, it would be a second reading. And so when it came time for the second reading, two other commissioners joined me and said, well, we're not going to support this at this time. So it failed then, 3-2 vote not to pass it. Then when it came around again, I definitely wanted to make sure that it was held up for at least 2 weeks. I was disappointed with the strong presence of policing downtown once this took place. And again, what we did didn't solve the problem. I think that we exacerbated the problem by not helping individuals get the help that they need. You know, our social workers that work for DSS, I met with two of them this past weekend. They have such a heart and a passion to help people, whether they're reconnecting with family members to get them rehoused that way, getting the right services, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's a food stamp card, whether it's trying to find them some type of a hotel to stay in. As I said last week when we had our strategy meeting with the Board of Commissioners, when COVID hit, we used some of our federal dollars to work with the Good Shepherd to house the homeless so that the COVID-19 would spread throughout that community. Why can't we do the same thing now? But again, we have spread people around. Homeless is still here in our community. And then what I noticed now is that you have many fields or wooded areas that are now being cleared out to make them a bit more visible. And again, the problem has not ceased. It's only got worse. And I'm proud of our county team for the work that they're doing. We have definitely been able to put people at the healing place to get them the services they need there, but also connect them again with some of the county resources. But we've got to do a whole lot more. And for me, the ordinance is really disrupted and canceled out the great work that was being done.
Thank you so much. So while we're chatting, Commissioner Burfield. So again, I'm new, right? So I'm like, I know what to do when I'm out on the streets, and I know what to do when I'm at the table with other service providers. But I think a lot of us in the room haven't ever communicated with our elected officials, or haven't ever said, hey, I'm concerned about this choice that we're making. Do you have a recommendation? Like, what do you think is the best way for us to communicate with our elected officials? Or even if it's just like, what's your preference? What do you think is good communication?
You know, we have two county commission meetings once a month. The first Monday at 4 o'clock at the 420, at the government courthouse right in the corner of 3rd and Princeton Street. We have our second meeting on the third Monday of the month at 9 a.m. At the end of the meeting, we have a public comment period. Anyone can sign up to come in and speak, and you can share your comments and concerns with the Board of Commissioners. And we're always listening. You can always call us. My cell phone is everywhere, and I do receive phone calls all the time. You can also email the board as well to share your concerns about any topic within our community, especially this topic here. And we encourage that. Oftentimes when folks are opposed to something, you see folks come to our meetings with red shirts or green shirts or blue shirts saying we're opposed to this. And the thing that I recognize is that my job is also to represent those folks that are sitting at home wearing their regular clothes because they want me to speak for them as well. And I can't just hear the red and the blue shirts, making sure we're making decisions based on what's best for the entire community. And sometimes you can get swayed. I'm telling you to come in different shirts, but sometimes you can get swayed by the loud voices at the same time. And to me, it's important to have a circumspect view of the decisions that we make.
Thank you. So this is kind of for anybody that feels inclined to respond. One of the lessons that I'm also on the board of the COC with Meg, and anybody is welcome to be a part of that collaborative. So that is your collaborative team of people that are brainstorming solutions and working towards them together. You do not have to be a social worker or work for a nonprofit. I would love to see more people that are in this room at that table. We could use your voice and your perspective. But one of the things that we learned a hard and semi-embarrassing lesson, so brace yourself, okay? With the ordinance, one of the reasons that we were having problems at the library specifically is lots of very well-intentioned people, like myself, were bringing things down to the library to bless people that were there. For example, food, clothing, blankets, things that it seems like somebody on the streets might need. But as it turns out, and Meg has a great story for this, but anybody that wants to speak to it, that was actually causing problems. It wasn't actually the blessing that it was intended to be. Somebody, yeah.
So the warming shelter was open for 5 days over Christmas holiday. And Christmas night, when folks came back in and checked into the shelter, there was a couple that had their cots near an entire church pew, a very long one, that was empty in the morning, but now it was full from end to end and stacked with boxes. And I said, "Where'd y'all get that stuff from?" And they said, "They were giving it out of the library today. What, were we not supposed to take it?" And I agree, right? Free stuff. But when the warming shelter ended and people had to exit and leave and move on, they stood out front of the church. Literally, the female was crying because they had no idea how were they going to get all of these new belongings back to their base camp. And so it dawned on me that, while we have these good intentions, definitely well-meaning people were part of the problem.
Yeah, go for it, Christine.
So I think what we do is we assume instead of ask, and just assume that they need things because they're homeless, but instead of asking what they need. And then the other comment I have is maybe coming back to the drawing board and asking people that volunteer and bring food and whatever and figure out what days. I mean, we serve every Wednesday, but even we have well-meaning people come onto our parking lot and also give more food as we're already handing food out. And I'm thinking, goodness gracious, is that just going to be on the sidewalk later? So I think we just need to come together and just figure out who's serving what, and but learn to ask instead of just assume that just because they're homeless they need something.
The challenge there is people bringing large quantities of food, and then they leave the food there in the containers, and the containers are left there. And that creates rodent problem and other problems as well. It's great to feed folks, but take your utensils back with you when you're done, and then bring them back the next time. And that way things remain clean somewhat. The assuming part is so important. Remember during Thanksgiving, folks were giving out turkeys to individuals, and the doctor's woman's door, they gave her a turkey. She said, "You assume that I have a stove to cook this turkey."
That's right.
It's important to ask the right questions first.
That is our golden rule at Vigilant Hope, ask, don't assume. And it is quite liberating. This is the first organization I've worked for that gave me permission to say no if someone calls with something that we don't need. I'm going to tell you what, when somebody calls us and says, "Do you need this? Would this be helpful?" It is like music to our ears. You can ask an organization this question, you can ask an individual this question. Is this something that would benefit you? I have a sneaking suspicion that we can house several people with the amount of food that really well-intentioned people are cooking, preparing, spending money on, and taking out to different places looking for people to serve. And it's heartbreaking to me because, again, we could probably house some people with those resources. And I think that we just don't know what we don't know. So I think it's important for us to consider that. Christine and Meg, tell us a little bit about vision for a day center. Like, why a day center? How would it help our city?
So I answer that by saying that because we did one before, United Methodist had a day center in the basement of Fifth Avenue, United Methodist Church. Okay, sorry. For 2 years, United Methodist had a day center in the basement of Fifth Avenue, United Methodist Church, until Hurricane Florence flooded it and closed it down. But we've done this work before, and so during that time, I was working for the hospital as a disability advocate. And we, first of all, offered people a place to come and rest. And so the day center was built on relationship. And we had coffee, we had lockers, we had TV, We had a desk where caseworkers could sit and meet with folks. We had an art table. We had a project called Homelessness where we helped people create art, and then we featured that art in galleries around the city. And so from that experience, we know that Day Center helps people, sometimes over a lot of time, right? But it helps build trust and relationships to start to suggest to folks that maybe there's a next step for them. And so my great story from there is a guy named Pork Chop. I don't know if anyone knows him, but I do. Yeah. So for that almost 2 years, I would be down in the basement of the Day Center, and people knew that I did disability, and he wouldn't ask me for help. And finally he said, all right, I'll let you help me. I mean, he was clearly disabled, and got on benefits and got housed almost immediately. And so, but it took all that time just showing up and being present to that person for them to ask for help. And so we see that reimagined again. We met Christine and Tony over the summer, and I think as the church, right, with Reverend Jamie Thompson of the Anchor and Pastor Randy Evans of Feast Gathering, you may also know him from Walking Tall Ministries, the future for us is collaboration. We're a bunch of poor churches that serve marginalized congregations, and so we need to get together and work together in order to keep our ministries going. And collaboration is so much more fun than working solo, right? And so when we met Christine and Tony, we thought we could do this because they have this shared dream as well. And so I'll let Christine give you a little more details about it.
So it's been a dream of Tony and I's for about 2 years to open up a day shelter or center. And we truly feel that God has called us into full-time ministry. So that's something that we want to do. And like Meg said, I mean, it's just amazing because we thought it was something that we were going to do just the two of us. And then God has called us into collaboration, which is so amazing. Right now, currently, we work on building relationships. We love on people, we build relationships, we help with housing if we can, we help with food stamps if we can, but we're doing all this outside 1 day a week for a couple hours. So our desire is to be open many days of the week, and we really want to be a hub. We do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want to be a hub for other services to come in to help, to have art classes, to maybe have music, for it to be a lively place, for it to be beautiful. That's one of my very specific things. And one of the things that we want to do too is we've been collecting mugs. I don't know how many mugs we have so far, but one of our desires is that we would do, we would serve coffee in a regular mug. It's saying, a paper mug says take this to go, but we want a regular mug where it says stay and sit and enjoy a cup of coffee for a while. And so one of the things is that we want to collect a bunch of mugs. We were going to do a drive, but currently we don't have a spot right now, so we're waiting. But that's just, we just want to collaborate. We want it to be an open place for people to come and get help if they want help, or get rest if they need rest.
What do you need?
Me personally, back when that day shelter was available, I remember it fondly because I used to go to that day shelter on a daily basis, just so that I could get the rest and acknowledgement that I needed from people that were actually trying to do something good for the homeless. It was a safe. I felt it as a safe haven for me. There was once, if I'm not mistaken, a group that came there that made hammocks and stuff, and allowed people to partake in that and sew the seams and tie the strings. And I got joy and satisfaction out of being able to be allowed to learn how to do something like that. And the day that it got shut down, I was heartbroken because I had nowhere to go on and spend my time. So of course I got into drugs, and that was definitely the wrong way to go. And we need a day shelter. That's what we need, another day shelter like that one back then.
Can you guys briefly speak to any obstacles that you're facing to opening your day shelter?
So we had a space that we really liked, But, you know, there are several obstacles with that space. There's been some internal conflict at the Anchor Church because there's been a pastor change. And so that always happens in church when one pastor leaves and you get another. And Jamie's a terrific pastor, so, and so that congregation needs to work through that. And so we thought they were really aligned with our mission, and it just turns out that they're not there yet, and that's okay. And then I think the other problem was, and it's really not a problem, but the neighbors had something to say about our mission in that part of the city, and that's legitimate, and I get it, but I also am going to say that the church will be the church, and we are called to live out the gospel, and we don't ask permission for that. That is our work, right? And so we want to find a way to be good neighbors, though, and so we have decided to just halt on that space. That space has halted us for the moment, and we are interested in exploring possible locations near, very close to the downtown area. We feel that God is calling us to the downtown space, and so we're still meeting with people, we're still chit-chatting, but we are waiting until something opens up. And we feel like something will. We have a little money for this project, and so we're sitting on our money. And but if you know of anyone who would like to sponsor a day shelter, day center space in or near the downtown area, let us know, right? Yeah.
Sure.
We do need that, and honestly, there's a little bit of pressure here because in 7 weeks I don't even have my parking lot. So for us, we need a lot. We need a day shelter, and like Mike said, preferably downtown. I love the 4th Street area near Mother Hubbard. That's just a perfect area because so many of them were walking there already by the bus stop. But we do need a church or someone to step up and allow us to use their space.
Thank you all for sharing. That is a real need. So we hear this, we have this really specific situation going on, right? We've got some circumstances where our neighbors that live outdoors are not welcomed to be in some of the public spaces that they naturally would be hanging out, or we would naturally all be hanging out if we need to be in public space. Why is that? That's a great question. We don't agree. We don't agree. And we got some folks that want to open up a day center that would not just be a safe space, although that's a basic, right? But would also be a space that could help someone move toward flourishing. And the obstacle right now is the actual access to space. So if you know, like they said, right? But here's the reality. So we got to focus on that, right? That's today. Today we know people who don't have, let's just get really graphic, a place to go to the bathroom in private. We don't have that right now. Also, we have this thing where I believe housing ends homelessness, right? The goal is not that people can just sit at the corner of the library. The goal is that everyone has a safe space to sleep at night. And so when we think about how housing ends homelessness, let's start thinking a little bit about housing. Lawrence, tell us, how did you end up in housing?
With a big, big helping hand. If it wasn't for the organization of Vigilant Hope helping me out and doing what they've been doing for me over the past 2 years, I would still be out there homeless with the rest of them. It's that being given the opportunity that I have been given through with Vigilant Hope has changed me 360 degrees from where I was 3 years ago. And all I needed was somebody to tell me that they cared. And that made me feel loved, and it made me feel human again. And people that are on homeless, that are out there on the streets, being pushed around from one side of the city to the other, if they don't feel loved and cared for, they're not going to want to go out and seek services. And being homeless should not be criminalized. You should not have to feel like a criminal because you don't have a place to live. That is just not right. And I will fight to the end of my days to make sure that does not happen. It's hard enough being homeless than having to worry about going to jail for laying your head down on a bench just to try and catch some sleep. That's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way.
And we appreciate it. So Commissioner Barfield, you have this like my favorite skill set, right? Because you have a background in real estate, you're a county commissioner, and you are a compassionate person. So I think you have all the answers to all my questions. No pressure. What's your hope? What's your hope for our city? What's your hope for our county? What would you like to see happen? Like, what do you think some creative solutions might be?
My hope is in this room right here. My hope is seeing this crowd of individuals come together for a common cause to help our fellow members. My hope is that this group here can start that movement and get other elected officials in our community to partner with the churches. It can't just be the government. It's got to be the whole entire community coming together, working together to solve this problem. Many years ago, when I first got on the Board of County Commission back in 2008, there was a group called the 10-Year Plan to End Chronic Homelessness that was formed. And it was centered in the downtown area to help folks that were chronically homeless. They eventually came up with parking meters where people could deposit change in to kind of help with the efforts. And then it came to the CLC where the county had to step in for roughly $25,000 with the city to form this great coalition based on some federal guidelines. And we saw other elected officials be compassionate and want to do work in that area. But now our community and our downtown has grown to this great metropolis where it's a challenge if you don't have a place to live and folks are trying to get to and from their businesses, not wanting to see, and the phrase is, those people. And always ask the question, who are those people? Because guess what? I'm one of those people. And for me, it's time for us as a community again to come together and just recognize we need to pool our resources, number one, doing things like Meg is doing, other churches coming together and partnering and finding those spaces downtown, because when the Salvation Army closes here shortly, the building will be gone, but the homeless will still be downtown. And again, until we solve the root of the problem will still indeed be there. And the problem is making sure that someone has a place to lay their head at night. As I shared in one of our meetings, I said, this guy I like to follow, him and his friends, they were homeless. They were sleeping in the Garden of Gethsemane. So if he was homeless, we should always have compassion for everyone. So I'm hoping again that my board will revisit this conversation. Again, I'm proud of the fact that we are putting resources together to bear with our Department of Social Services to help individuals. I just hope that we can continue to reach folks and get that permanent housing that's needed. I'm thankful for Eden Village. We partnered with them from the county standpoint. A couple of years ago, we provided money for some of their water and sewer infrastructure. We partnered with First Ministries in the past with some of our money for outside agencies, as well as the Good Shepherd, who's been a long-time partner with the county. Again, there are others that we can partner with. I'm happy that the hospital was sold for the simple fact that they're using some of those resources to help your organization and others fight this terrible problem in our community and help folks get back to some type of stability. But again, we all should have a heart to help folks and recognize that it could be you, it could be I. There's so many folks that are one paycheck away. Just one firing away, one house fire away, being in the same exact situation. And until you get there, you can't understand. But in the business that I'm in, being a realtor, I've seen folks that have had $1 million homes that have gone through their children's savings account and have nothing else to use. I see some of those folks take their lives because they couldn't handle the pressure. And so, again, I would encourage you all to make your voices known to your elected officials on the county level, the city level, and on the state level.
All right, lightning round, last question. Y'all okay? Everybody take a breath. This is a lot. Take a breath. All right, lightning round, last question, and then I'm going to come to you. Is that okay? Perfect. Thank you. I would love to hear from you. Okay, last question. What do you wish people knew? Give me a nugget. What do you wish this crowd right here, what do you wish they knew?
That they have souls just like you and me.
I wish people knew that there is case law that is out there that protects the rights of individuals experiencing homelessness, and that I'm really interested in meeting a civil rights attorney.
I would like people to know that being homeless and living on the streets is a lot harder than what it would be if somebody had a house, a place to wash themselves every night, a place to cook, a place to wash their clothes, a bed to lay themselves in. Homeless people don't have those 4 key things. And it just makes life of being homeless a whole lot harder. And it was hard for me for many, many years. And it took a toll on me. It took a toll on my mental health. And it took a hold on our relationships. It was just really, really hard for me. I fought it to the end, and I overcame it, but I didn't overcome it on my own. And it takes a community to raise a child. And it takes a community to help end chronic homelessness.
Amen.
That you're not a criminal because you're homeless. That the library should be a safe haven. My wife works at the Pine Valley Library. When it was a Myrtle Grove Library, I would see this family often. The husband would go to work. He would drop his wife off at the library. She would stay there the entire day. They had a black Suburban. And in the evening time, you would see their black Suburban parked beneath a tree at the Myrtle Grove Library. The Wi-Fi they could tap into because it went throughout the entire parking lot, and they would be out there throughout the entire night. I walk a lot at Longleaf Park, and on many occasions I see several ladies that would be at one of our huts there. And I know they're homeless because they have the sleeping bags with them and other bags. They can plug into the electrical outlets there for a time being. 6:30 in the morning, I walk through and I see these ladies that are out there. A few months ago, my daughter, who has a compassion for helping folks, met this young lady who was sleeping in her car in the dead of winter. And by the grace of God, I reached out to Trina Knight of the Good Shepherd, and they got her in there pretty darn quick. I want you to know that there's help in our community. There are folks that love and care and are here to help. There are resources that will come to bear to help, and that you're loved. That's what I want you to know.
All right, so it's ready for just a minute. Can we give a round of applause?
Hello, yeah. I'm homeless. I've been homeless for many, many years. Just a question. I see a lot of these churches and people with shirts and tattoos and things like that. What would you do for Jesus? Or what would Jesus do? Jesus already done that. He died on the cross for our sins to save our souls. We are forgiven if we are washed in his blood and cleansed by him. That's my own personal belief. My question to everybody here is, even the pastors and Good Shepherd and all these places and people, is what would you do for Jesus? Would you sacrifice a home or a car? Because maybe these things that you are gifted with, you are blessed with, other people may need more than you do. You never know what comes around can go around.
I think you give him plenty.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. That's the word, right? Like we were invited to, are y'all ready to act? We already got some stuff done now. Let's go. All right. Oh, I got too many microphones. Hold on. Okay. We're gonna move toward wrapping up the evening. I'm gonna review a couple of next step opportunities. Because again, our goal is overwhelmed to the point of action, not to the point of paralysis, right? So take a breath, right? If you've got your little beautiful program that is printed, there are a couple of events coming up. One step that you can take is to learn more. Like I said, you're not going to come out tonight knowing everything that there is to know and knowing all the things that could be done. So the next step might be to learn more things. So literally, just this coming Thursday, if you want to better understand housing and what the state of housing is in our community, the housing affordability in the Cape Fear 2023 breakfast is Thursday morning. It is free, but you do have to register, and I heard they were close to capacity, so you need to register like tonight, right? Go on ahead and register tonight so you get your spot. It is also streamed online if you want to stay at home in your pajamas and watch it that way. We have some really awesome UNCW students that have also been moved to act and advocate. They are encouraging, me and Meg, we're tired. Listen, we're tired, but the students are encouraging us. But they have 2 events coming up. So they have a film screening and panel, a call to action to help our unhoused neighbors. That's on March 28th. And they're also doing a sleep-in demonstration on April 7th. Hey, Jesus followers in the room, y'all know that's Good Friday, right? There might be a little something there for us to meditate on, okay? So that's happening. The first Tuesday of every single month, that COC thing that we keep talking about, that coalition meets. You learn about resources. We start to collaborate together. You get opportunities to do cool things like serve on committees that are doing good work to address the things that we've been talking about, the root issues. If you want to get your hands dirty, come join us in the COC and get involved with us. All right, and then here's the thing. Okay, so we talked about kind of both those things, that safe space right now, helping people survive, and that big picture housing thing. So we don't have this great laid out plan, but I'm going to give you 3 opportunities to join a discernment group. All right, and these groups are going to just kind of listen to what some other people have already been exploring and working on. And maybe you just might be a part of the next steps that come with it. Maybe you're just going to cheer them on or pray for them. Maybe you're going to give some money. Maybe you know where the building is that it needs to happen or whatever, right? We don't know. I wish we knew, but we don't know yet. But maybe you're the one that helps us know. So there are 3. There is the Day Center Discernment Group. You could join in with these fantastic folks. It's over on the table over there by Kyle. There is the Housing Discernment Group, which has even less details than the Day Center Group. And that's over there with Devin. It's in my imagination right now. It's not even a thing yet, right? And then we also have, I'm just learning about the work that Pastor Rob Campbell and New Beginnings Church are doing. They're exploring what it would look like to have a night shelter. So if you're interested in helping with discerning toward a night shelter, you can see Pastor Robbie's got a sign up over there. All right, so 3 different kind of, if there's something that really perks your heart, like go for that. If you want to join all 3, that's probably what I would do if I were here at this event. Because I'm an overcommitter. All right? Write a letter to your elected officials. So we have if you're like, I still don't know what to say, Meg wrote a pre-written beautiful letter that I fully stand by. It's there at that back table with all the people that didn't get to sit in the chair. All right? So if you'd like to write a letter, we're going to make life easy for you, right? Write your own letter or sign that letter, stick it in an envelope, and we will mail it for you. I'm buying you a stamp. All right? All right. So there are next steps to be taken. There is a vote tomorrow with City Council that is specifically about some funds that are designated for people experiencing homelessness. We want them to vote yes as planned because it prioritizes permanent supportive housing. And that is what every service provider, every person on the streets that I know, everybody thinks that housing is a priority right now. So we want to vote yes for that. You need to email them because it's tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to pass it over. We're going to work towards wrapping up. I'm going to invite Reverend Jamie Thompson. I'm going to invite Jeremy Hardy back up, and they're going to kind of guide us through what it looks like to close this time out. Once we close it, you can go do the letter thing. You can go see our great neighbors over here that are all doing great work in the community, or sign up for the discernment groups. Yeah? Y'all okay?
Yeah.
Y'all are like,
Oh. With me? Do this for me. Turn to somebody on your left and your right and just look them in the eye. So this was a lot. So before Jeremy closes us out, I'm going to do something real quick with this, okay? I've been doing community work for a long time. I am Jamie. I'm the pastor of the Anchor, the one having some problems. Y'all ever been in an organization that's trying to work through a change? All right, now, come on now. I'm the new preacher in town at the Anchor, and but the heart of our church is to love folks. We worship outdoors. And down at Amboni's on the river, so we worship with a lot of folks who are living outdoors. We have simple coffee breakfast every Sunday, and we are intentionally working, not just to listen to this preacher, but really connect with one another. So we're there every Sunday morning. But so as we end this time together, I'm going to use the words that a teacher of mine used when I was in school. Her name is Katie Cannon. She's worth a Google search. She said this. She said, I'm going to need y'all to think with your hearts and feel with your brains. I'm going to need y'all to think with your hearts and feel with your brains. And in this, I know it's good, isn't it? And in this community work, this is what I know. This is what I know. Number one, this is a long haul. This is a long haul. When we're doing something called working for justice, it's a long, long haul. So settle in. I want you to check in real fast with your own self right now. All right? Start at the top of your head. If your brow is all furrowed up, just let it loosen. If your jaw is kind of tight, let it relax. What about your shoulders? Are they tight? Are they holding something? Put your hand on your belly. Where's all this sitting? It's sitting somewhere. Your legs. Tap your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. Good point. Feel the earth beneath you. Feel the earth beneath you. Breathe out. Some of y'all are holding your breath. Try one more time. Just exhale. Breathe in. Breathe out. This is the last thing. This is a little weird. Just go with me. I'm going to hum. And I just want you to hum with me. Okay?
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we trespass against others. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. God, give us strength to exist in the world of homeless people who have no home, substance, water, but I enjoy coffee. Lord Jesus Christ, I always will, and I love the Lord, our Father in heaven. I love Steve. I love Javier. I love the Lord City Church. And yes, I did hear on the radio today that I own the only hymnal of any homeless, of a homeless person. And I live in a tent. And it doesn't hurt me too much.
Thank you. I appreciate your voice. That was beautiful. I can't think of a better way to end with that. I felt like I just walked out of my therapist's office. That was incredible. But it's my job to kind of commission us out of here, and we didn't want to get too churchy. We thought about doing communion, but we were like, that might be a little weird. But we're going to do it this way. And when I think through these things that we do, for me, I'm a little bit practical. But this is such a heavy thing to hold. And when I think through like how I really feel like the Lord wants us to do biblical justice in this moment, think through a couple different things. One is we just can't sit back and wait for this movement that we think might come. So I think it's important for us to be reminded that God wants to use every single one of you right here. Like We are literally the movement of Christ, right? A lot of times we just sit and wait for the movement, when literally God wants to use each and every one of you right here. And one thing that I think that we forget so often, I want to do two things. One thing that I think that we forget is that I really think the panel has already solved it. We forget to listen. We forget to just be with people. 10 years ago, when me and my family decided to move here, we heard very evidently that God wanted us to come and just be with people that were experiencing homelessness and poverty. That was 10 years ago. And if you ask me now, I feel like I've only accomplished 2 years worth of work. This is hard. But man, I feel like the church forgets to just listen. We so often go to the second step of let's just serve a meal, let's just provide clothing, and let's just tell them what they need instead of listening to their needs. And then the second great action item that I think that we often forget, God has given each and every one of you a platform that he wants you to use, right? My dad recently called me this past week, actually, told me this beautiful story. My dad is an everyday kind of businessman. He's a manager at a furniture store. He retired. But 20 years ago, he hired a woman who was a recovering alcoholic, didn't get along with any of the employees, and he decided to intentionally hire. I had no clue that he did this. This lady called him last week and said, Mr. Hardy, I just need to thank you for what you did. Literally changed my life because of you standing up for me in the workplace. We need people in the workplace, not just church, in the workplace, in the council. We need people where God has given you this platform to use it and start there, right? And how we kind of want to end tonight, we have these two tables on either side, and you've noticed a card on your chair, right? And if you see that card, we just wanted to kind of get you in this kind of act of worship to write down one word you feel like the Lord's calling you to do, or just one word that you feel like you just need to say in this moment. What's that one word? Then as you come up, you see these beautiful rocks. When we see rocks, we think of they're strong, their foundation. Now, there's already incredible things happening in our city to end homelessness. If you look over here, all the nonprofits, I hope that they would all agree. I know that they would. We literally are trying to work ourselves out of a job, right? It's literally our mission is to work ourselves out of a job to end poverty in our city. And you guys get to play a part in that. So as you come up and get your card, take a rock. You're part of that foundation of ending poverty here in our city. So let me just take a moment and pray. But after I pray, you guys are free to come up to the table, put your card down on the tables, take a rock with you, and just remember this night. Let me pray. God, we just thank you for this moment. God, we just are humbled, and we're so honored for this opportunity. God, we just sit and we rest under your feet, God. We're so humbled to be together. God, what an opportunity is this, God, for such a time as this, that all these leaders have gathered together to stand for an issue in our city. And I pray over next steps. God, we just love you, we worship you, and we pray. Amen. Thank you all. Have a good night.